Hello, this is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt, President of the Institute of Lutheran Theology and a faculty member in our Christ School of Theology. We're talking today about Aristotle because we believe that Aristotle must be understood, at least to a certain level, in order to understand the theological tradition. They all knew Aristotle, so we're learning some Aristotle. Last time we talked about his logic. Now we're talking a bit about his science, if you will. In the sciences, and of course the word science has a different connotation in classical languages than it does. But when we use the word in English, we think about, the natural sciences or the social sciences. Science is a branch of knowledge. Science just means knowledge, right? A knowledge of a content area. So, of course, science includes the empirical sciences, but it also includes metaphysics, because that's a content area, study of being insofar as being is being, and mathematics. Now, I believe that mathematics is a type of science, and if you believe that, you'll find your mathematics departments in the arts and science division of your university. Unfortunately, they get thrown into engineering colleges sometimes, and I'm not sure that makes good sense with regard to how at least mathematics has been understood historically. Science uses demonstration, apodeixis, in order to capture the causal structures of the world. This is a great insight by Aristotle, and it's what we do when we do scientific theory. We use demonstration. We have some axioms. We demonstrate what follows from those axioms, and the demonstration of those things that follow from those axioms is mapping the causal structure of the world. Okay? We proceed axiomatically. Aristotle's did, we do, because we start in our knowledge with what is better known and deduce what is less so. Well, of course, that's not in the order of discovery. It took a long time for us to figure out that force is equal to mass times acceleration, right? But after we found that out, we can deduce all kinds of particular things using that general truth, that law of nature, that mass is equal to, or force is equal to mass times acceleration. Or that well, I won't go there. I don't need to give you another example. Aristotle talks at one place about the unmediated intellectual apprehension of first principles. The word nous again coming up. And he understands that in order to grasp first principles, something else is going on rather than just a deduction. So, the word intellectual apprehension, unmediated, means it's not the result of a logical derivation, right? There is a type of knowledge that's immediate. Yet it's difficult to see exactly how one grasps them. He seems to find in them some sort of a posteriori necessity. And then that's saying a mouthful. All kinds of philosophers in the 20th century thought there weren't such things as a posteriori necessities because anything in the world is a contingent thing. It could be or not be, and we have to go out and find out things in the world. But then a number of philosophers thought about this deeply and said things like, well, would it be gold if it didn't have that atomic number? Could it be carbon if it had an atomic number of 2? Could it be carbon? Well, no, it couldn't. Well, then that seems like, well, it took us a long time to find out what the atomic number of carbon was. But after we found it, we recognized that came along with carbon, right? So that would be an example, if there are such things, as a posteriori necessities. And maybe this is where Aristotle's going with some of this thinking. Dialectic is a method of reasoning on the basis of first principles that are in doxa. This is this received opinion. And it's important training in argument for conversational exchanges and for philosophy. And of course, in this back and forth movement of examining the endoxa, we're supposed to come to an intellectual apprehension of what obtains. It's useful philosophically because once we look at arguments on both sides, we perceive what is true. this seems to be how we understand the courtroom situation. We have a prosecuting attorney and a defense attorney, and they're going back and forth, and then all of a sudden the judge and jury is supposed to come to see the truth of it in this back and forth movement. Well, in dialectic, one cross-examines the indoxa, right? Indoxa is being cross-examined by the philosophers, and we're trying to then grasp whether or not these indoxa have staying power. Are they opinions that survive critical cross-examination? In this process, we again establish these first principles. Now, I want to say just a few words about category theory in this lecture, although I'm holding off to the major work on the categories to a later lecture. I want to say that in the categories, at least, Aristotle does make a distinction between synonymy and homonymy. Synonymy and homonymy. The term A, for instance, is synonymous with the term B. Now we're working it up like a more modern philosopher would. With respect to predicate F, if and only if A is F, B is F, and the accounts of F-ness in each are the same. See, they would have to be the same. Accounts of F-ness in order for the term A, which has F, and the term B, which has F, to be synonymous. So A is synonymous with B with respect to predicate F, if the accounts of F are the same. This is not so for homonymy. Homonymy, can't say it. Term A is homonymous with B with respect to predicate F, if and only if A is F, B is F, that's the same, and the accounts of F-ness in each do not overlap. So that gives you a kind of independent meaning, right? Independent accounts, but yet the term is the same term, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that. In the topics, Aristotle criticizes Plato for claiming that good, the term good, is applied univocally. Univocally means the same way everywhere. With one voice is what it actually means, right? Aristotle trumpets a view of homonymousness, that's a hard one, homonymousness, where while the terms can overlap in meaning, they are held together by a term having a focal meaning. Well, what am I saying? Well, the example is healthy. Socrates is healthy. We're using the word healthy. We might say that Socrates exercises, that his exercise regime is healthy, and we might say that Socrates' complexion is healthy. These aren't synonymous uses of healthy. We're using the same word, so there's a homonymy, but yet there is some kind of focal meaning here that Aristotle's after. You see what I'm saying? There is some kind of, they're not synonymous, but there is a relationship between the meaning of healthy and Socrates is healthy and Socrates' complexion is healthy. Now, we miss all this unless we think about it deeply. What are the identity conditions of Socrates being healthy? And notice how that would be different than Socrates' complexion being healthy. How would we identify that in each? Well, there'd be different accounts, wouldn't there? But there's something about those counts that are similar in some ways. Well, this is where Aristotle's going with being, right? He holds that being is homonymous, though there is one sense that is focal. So what Aristotle's always doing is he's trying to talk about the many senses of being, but of course there is some sense in which they're not widely disparate with regard to meaning. Being doesn't mean duck over here and goose over there, right? So, at any rate, in the same way that there is a focal meaning to healthy, there could be and he hopes there is, and he's looking for a focal meaning to being in the many senses in which being is used. You see. Now, after Aristotle talks about this, he's going to talk about his category theory, and of course we'll talk more about this next time. But you can see that of things said without combination, that is terms, each thing said without combination signifies either a substance, quantity, quality, or relative. It's not exactly a relation, but we could think about it a little bit that way. We'll talk about that next time. Place, or where, when, time, position, having, acting upon, and being affected by, right? Action and passion. These things signified are probably extra-linguistic objects, entities that are not facts, and this gets us into the whole question what a fact is and how that relates to a state of affairs, if there is a difference, and how that relates to the truth value of a sentence. But facts are generally considered to be truth makers for propositions that are truth bearers, right? So if a proposition is true, there must be something that makes it true. That would be a fact or a state of affairs. We're not talking about facts or state of affairs here, because facts or state of affairs has to do with the relationship of things in the world. Here we're talking about the constituents, if you will, of facts or states of affairs. So truth and falsity do not apply to bare entities, of course. You don't say that goose is true or 2 years old is true or false, right? Truth and falsity apply to propositions, and they would apply to that which makes them true or false, facts, states of affairs. One might say that you wouldn't say that the fact or the state of affairs is false, you would say that it didn't obtain. If the fact or state of affairs obtained, then the proposition would be true. Okay, Aristotle gives illustrations of each of these. Substance, he gives an example of man or horse. That's probably pretty good. Quality, white, I like that. Grammatical, I've never been very excited about grammatical as a quality of a human being. Does show us something about how Aristotle thought about things. He didn't think the mind-body problem was the same problem we think about, evidently. Quantity, 2 feet long. Relative, double, slave. Place in the market, time, yesterday, tomorrow, position, lying, sitting, having, he has shoes on, acting upon, cutting or burning, being acted upon, being cut or burnt. Socrates seems to handle the questions of existence on the basis of whether or not the thing belongs to a certain category. Time exists, right, because it can be predicated of primary substances. Very famously and very importantly, and we'll talk about this at length next time, he distinguishes between the set of relation and the present in relation. And I'll talk about this more next time. If there are no primary substances for Aristotle, there are no other things either. So the focal meaning of being for Aristotle relates to the existence of primary substances. Being is applied homonymously to the entities present in the substances. These are sometimes called the accidents. Essential predication, we'll talk about next time, so you have to come back for that lecture, is the set of relation, and accidental predication is the present in relation. Aristotle seemed to suppose, or presuppose these categories through his entire life. What Aristotle says in the categories is that some things you can neither say a thing of those things, that is to say, it is not said of that thing or present in that thing. There are some things that are present in other things but are not said of other things. There are some things that are said of other things that are not present in other things. And there are some things that are both said of and present in other things. And we'll come back to this next time. So let's stop this lecture at this point. We'll go forward now with causality next time, and then we're coming back with the true lecture on the categories. Thank you very much.